Hey guys, what's up? It's Savannah. Welcome back to another episode of My Thoughts Exactly. Thank you guys so much for joining me here today. Before we get started, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. That way you never miss an episode. We post weekly on the podcast every single Friday. You're not going to want to miss it. We also upload the video version on YouTube on Fridays as well. So make sure you're subscribed. And with that being said, you guys, happy Friday. I hope you all have had a great week so far. And if you haven't, guess what? It's Friday. It's the weekend. You made it. Happy Friday, you guys. It is Tuesday when I'm recording this, but I will say I have been having a pretty good week, and that is mainly attributed to the fact that the weather has not surpassed 75 degrees thus far this week, and I am very excited about it. Next week, the highs are in the 60s, and when I tell you guys, I cannot wait. I know you believe me because I won't shut up about the fucking weather for the past couple weeks, but I'm just very excited. And it's pretty outside. Fall is here and all as well. But before we jump into today's episode, I do want to take a second and just say that I am sending all of my love to everyone who has been affected by Hurricane Helene and the upcoming Hurricane Milton. I hope you guys are staying safe, and I'm sending all of my love and my prayers to all of you. So please, please stay so safe. Now, as we move on to today's episode, you guys, I am so excited because we are back doing none other than my favorite segment on this podcast, which is What Would Sav Do? And if you are wondering what a What Would Sav Do is, I'm pretty sure you're not, because I think that if you're here, you already know. I think it's an if you know kind of deal, but I'm going to explain it anyways. What Would Sav Do is a segment that we like to do here where I ask you guys what's going on in your life, what you're dealing with, what you're going through. And that is when I, Sav, hey, hi, hello, tell you what I would do in your situation, in your scenario. I'm not saying to take my advice. I'm just telling you what I would do if it was me. Hence a What Would Sav Do? I like to do these once a month, sometimes twice a month if we're really feeling crazy. But every time I feel like we only do it once a month, I feel like I get so many from you guys. Like I literally is like an overload of it. So I'm like, oh my God, we need to do this more often. But then I'm like, I don't know. I go back and forth with it, but I do love doing these segments with you guys because I love incorporating you guys into the podcast however I can. So if you want to be a part of the next one, make sure you go ahead and follow the My Thoughts Exactly Instagram page. It's just My Thoughts Exactly podcast. I'm always asking you guys anything podcast related, any segment we're ever doing. It's always going to be on the My Thoughts Exactly podcast. I like to say, or the My Thoughts Exactly podcast Instagram, I should say. But I always like to say that the podcast Instagram is definitely more of like a private story. I'm really bad at posting on my main Instagram, I will say, and that's something that I'm going to be working on. I like it, it's in the works, but I will also say that I love posting on the podcast Instagram because I just feel like it's like a bunch of my best friends. So that's my thought process on that. But anyways, I asked you guys what was going on in your life, what you needed, what was bothering you, and you came through. We've got a lot to talk about. So we are going to jump right on into it today. I just moved out and I ghosted my roommates. They have been so mean to me and I can't focus. I need mental help. Okay, first of all, I think that it might not seem like it right now. Honestly, is probably seeming like very overwhelming and like kind of the walls are closing in a little bit. But I do think that you should be proud of yourself for removing yourself from a toxic and negative situation. I think that the alternative of that, is just continuing to remain in that scenario and in that vicious cycle of feeling even worse than you would feel if you left. So I think it's a great thing that you left. I think it's an amazing thing that you removed yourself from that scenario where it was toxic and where you would have just continued down a negative spiral. Does that mean that by removing it, everything gets fixed and everything is great and everything is like all is well and dandy? No, it's going to take some time, especially if they were like severely impacting your mental. But I do think that you should be proud of yourself from removing yourself from that situation. And I think that you are on the path now to feeling better. And again, it might not feel like it right now. It might take some time for that to happen, but you should be proud for getting out of that because again, there was no positive of staying in that. And the fact that you can stand up for yourself enough and be like, no, I'm not going to sit in this situation. I'm not going to continue to be, berated and, constantly have this negativity in my life. That shows that if you have the strength to do that, you have the strength and the desire to want more for yourself. And it means that you will get that, if that makes sense. So I think that you, again, should just be very proud that you removed yourself from that situation. And again, it's going to take some time, but focus on the fact that there is a light at the end of the tunnel because you already did the hardest part. The hardest part was leaving, and the hardest part was getting out of that situation. And the fact that you did that, even though it will take some time to kind of feel reacclimated and get settled into a new life and a new chapter, you've already done the hardest part. So just know that the silver lining is coming. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. You should be so proud of yourself for getting yourself out of that. And I think we can all say, I'm so proud of you. I think that that is such an amazing thing and an admirable thing to be able to remove yourself from a toxic scenario like that. And again, just know there is a light at the end of the tunnel in all of it. And even though it will take some time, you will get there. What would Sav do if your in-laws only called your husband when they needed something? Okay, so I think that this is interesting because this definitely pertains to, your husband and his family, his parents. And while this is just my perception of it, I do think that it's important for you as the wife in this scenario and as your husband's wife to voice the fact that, hey, this bothers me. Like, it bothers me that it seems like they're only calling you when they need something, and definitely let your voice be heard in that situation. But I do think that it's difficult because I think the relationship between, your in-laws and your spouse, that relationship is a tricky one to try and get in the middle of. So I would not get in the middle of it. I would just tell your husband, like, listen, I kind of feel weird because I just feel like they are always after something. Like, they always are calling you only when they need something. Like, they're never calling to just check in, or they're never calling to see how you are. It always seems like, they need something. Again, let your voice be heard in that way, but let your husband kind of take it from there. I think oftentimes if you're anything like me and you have like a fix it personality and you want to be the one that like jumps in the middle and like saves everyone and like wants to, get your husband out of that situation or make things better for him, you always try and fix the scenario. Sometimes there's things in life that we just don't have the control over and we don't have the ability to fix it. And I think that this is one of those things. If your husband chooses to have his parents in his life, that's kind of a him decision, in my opinion. I think that that's something that he needs to navigate on his own. Again, if it comes to where it's like actually impacting you and it's impacting like certain areas of your life, like despite like other than just being like annoyed by it or other than being put off by it, then I think that's a different conversation. But initially, I think that you just kind of have to let your husband deal with this battle however he chooses to and support him through that. Because again, I think it is important to let your voice be heard and be like, hey, listen, I think that this is weird. Like, point blank, it's weird. The fact that your parents only call you when they need something, don't love it. I think is a strange relationship and I don't think it's healthy. Once that gets voiced, there's really not much more you can do. If he agrees with you, great. And if he doesn't, then that's just going to kind of have to be something that he figures out on his own. And it's something that, you've voiced your opinion and you've done as much as you can do at that point. And I think that afterwards, it's just kind of up to you as to how you want to move forward. And I think that the best thing to do is to just support him in the decision that he makes moving forward. If it's something where he has to figure it out in a year or 2 years or 5 years that this is not the relationship that he wants with his parents and he's going to remove himself from that or distance himself from that, then I think that that's a decision that he needs to make. Also because, and this is just something that I always think about, I never want anyone to make a decision that I have that I have like very much had a heavy that I have heavily impacted. I don't want to heavily impact someone else's decision in something because I don't want them to grow to resent me for it later. Not saying that that would happen, but that's always something that I think about. If I am constantly telling someone or I'm saying, hey, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this, when it's a situation that involves them and that pertains mostly to them, and then they do something about it and then they're like, well, you were the one that said I should do this. And it's like, okay, well, back it up. And so I do think in this scenario, it is important for you to voice your opinion because you deserve to have a voice and you deserve to have it be heard. And I also think it's appropriate for your husband to figure out how he wants to navigate through the relationship with his parents, if that makes sense. So that's what I would do. And then if it starts actually like affecting you in other ways, other than just like being annoyed or being bothered by it, then that's a different conversation. But for where you're at right now, that's how I would move. My ex, who I still love, wants me to move across the country to be with him. What would Sav do? I would not do that personally, and I'm going to tell you why. I think that Asking someone to uproot their life or uproot their life for you when you're not dating is a tall ask. And I'm saying this as someone who has also been asked to do that. And at first, it's flattering. Because again, I think when an ex is like trying to rekindle and they're like, oh, just move back and or move here and we can, figure things out and we'll be together and I want to try this out again. I think that the idea of it is better than the actual reality of it. Because what are you going to do? You're going to move back to move wherever he wants you to move. And then what? Your life is suddenly going to revolve around him. You don't have that independence of being your own person, I feel like, at that point. Because when you're moving somewhere to solely be with someone, I don't know if he's moved anywhere that's like you're familiar with or that you have any friends at, but I'm kind of basing my answer off of like you don't have anyone in that area other than him. That's a tall ask, because what's going to start happening is your entire world is going to revolve around him. And that's okay, but you have to ask yourself if that's what you want. Because I think that what's important and where I've struggled in my scenario when I dealt with this is, why am I going to move back to be with someone who wouldn't move here to be with me? Does that make sense? If not, let me explain. Why am I going to uproot my life and go back to someone who, we broke up to begin with, for whatever the case may be? I'm going to uproot and go back to that person and move my life around to be with them, uproot my entire life, change everything to be with them. But they're not going to do the same for me. And that's where it really stuck out for me. Because I remember when I was in this scenario and I had this conversation, I was like, well, move here. If it's that important to you, move here. And I know it's not feasible for everyone because of jobs and, people have outside situations going on. So it's not always that easy. But in my scenario, it was. So when I was explaining this, I said, move here instead. And he wouldn't do it. And it was like, okay, well, why am I going to uproot my life, change everything? I'm going to move to a place where I just left. And I'm going to move back to be with you. And guess what? I can almost predict what's going to happen. I'm going to move back and nothing's going to change. I'm going to move back and we're still going to be going through the same bullshit. And you wouldn't do the same for me. And that's the biggest thing. I don't want someone where I have to move my entire life around when they would not do the same. If they would, that's a different scenario. In my situation, they wouldn't. I think that the whole idea of uprooting a life to be with someone that you're not currently with is, again, a tall ask, because I think that if you guys were already together and he was like, hey, like, I just don't want to do long distance anymore and I really want you to be here with me, that's such a different scenario. But when you're broken up and then you move on with your life and then they're like, wait, come back, come be with me, like come uproot your whole life to come move back to where I am and start a life here. It just is selfish to me. It's a selfish ask. And if you want to do it, go for it. I think that if you truly feel like in your gut that this is something that you need to do, you want to do, I think that that's great. But if you're sitting there contemplating it, I would weigh out the pros and cons. What are the pros of going there other than just being with him? Is there one? If you don't like where you're living, then sure. Yeah. If you hate where you're at right now, then go. But if you already have a life and if you are already feeling established and you're feeling happy with where you're at in your life and it's just the love interest that's missing, then I would rethink that. Because you can always find a new love interest. You can always find someone else. And a lot of people don't like to say that because it's like, well, no, it's not just someone else, it's this person. And I get it. Sometimes it is just that person. But if that person is not willing to do the same thing for you that you're willing to do for them, then that's where I start to have a problem. Because this isn't like, a small something. This is, hey, uproot your whole life and come move to a different state with me. That's crazy. Did you say across the country too? Or am I just making that up? Hold on, I'm going back. Yeah, move across the country. Across the country. No, why are we moving across the country? That's crazy. That's a crazy ask. My opinion is don't do it, because I think that unless you are like, this is my person, 125%, I can say a million times over without any second guessing that this is the person I want to be with and like this is it for me, I wouldn't do it. The fact that you're not together, again, if you were, different answer, but you're not. So I'm sticking with my answer. And that was a harsh big sister truth, but I think that you just deserve to hear that, because I think it's easy when someone's feeding you all of the butterflies and flowers and pixie dust and fairies and making it sound really good. When someone's romanticizing that idea, it's easy to fall back into it. But I think it's important to pull yourself out of that for a second. Ask yourself why you broke up. Ask yourself if this is a really smart move, not just for the two of you together, but you as an individual, because that's really important. How to work through deep rooted trust issues. I know my boyfriend would never cheat on me, but I'm battling myself. What would Sav do? I can definitely relate to the deep rooted trust issues. And I think that that's just unfortunately something that always exists when you have them. And I don't think that there's like any sugarcoating that. I think that if you have trust issues, you will always have them, but it's about how to manage them and how to work with them and how to not let them control your life and your relationship. What I've learned with my trust issues pertaining to my romantic relationships is that when I let my trust issues get in the way of the relationship that I have, I am self-sabotaging the relationship that I am in, because just to be bluntly, brutally honest, no one knows how the relationship will end. If it's going to end, you don't know if it's going to end. You don't know how it's going to end. It could not end. It could end. You could sit there constantly battling yourself about all of the lists of, of with all of the lists of things of how this could go wrong, whether that's with, trust issues and something pertaining to that, someone breaking trust, cheating, something of that sort, or something totally different. We don't know if or how a relationship is going to end. And what I realized is that by spending so much time having this internal monologue and fighting with myself about the trust issues that I was having, I was disconnecting myself mentally from the relationship that I was in. I wasn't able to be fully present because I was always worried and waiting for another shoe to drop. And it really hindered me from being full on in the relationship. And at the end of the day, what I also learned is that I have no control about how this ends or how it doesn't. And I kind of got to a point within myself where I was like, I would rather just live my life. I would rather live my life, and I would rather love who I love and have my relationships. And if it ends and I get fucked over, if my trust issues, turn out to be true, or if my suspicions turn out to be right, then I can deal with that then. But why am I going to hinder myself with so much anxiety, so much stress over something that either has not happened or I cannot control? At the end of the day, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. That's just the honest truth, whether or not I'm sitting here stressing over it. So I'm going to choose not to. I'm going to choose not to stress over it. And especially in this scenario, when you're saying that your boyfriend would never cheat on you, you already know you have a good one. And so don't self-sabotage yourself from experiencing a love that you deserve to have because of the fuck ups that people have made you go through in the past. I think that when you have trust issues, it's really easy, because obviously you're not going to have trust issues with the people that did you wrong, because those people are out of your life. So those issues are going to then land on the future relationships that you have, which obviously is unfortunate, but it's just the fact of life. And I think that it can get really difficult when those issues start to control the relationship that you are in. If someone has shown you that they are good and they are good to you and they love you and you love them and the relationship is good, I know it's going to be hard, but don't let the voices of the trust issues get to you, because again, if it's going to end, it will end. And that might sound very pessimistic, but truthfully, it has made me look at relationships in a lot better of a way, because I'm like, why am I going to literally lose sleep over something that has not happened because I'm worried that it might? It just doesn't make a lot of sense. Now, obviously, in my mind, it makes sense because I have trust issues. But in reality, I'm doing myself a disservice, and I'm doing the relationship that I'm in a disservice because I'm not letting it see its fullest potential. Because if you're always waiting for the other shoe to drop, you're never going to be fully in it. I remember that was something that I had this conversation with Hayden in the beginning of our relationship. I remember things were like really going well for a while, for a while. But in the beginning, when things were really going well, I told him, I was like, I'm almost waiting for the other shoe to drop. And he got offended by that, because he was like, what do you mean? He's like, why can't you just let a good thing be a good thing? Like, this is a good thing that we have. And I was like, You're right. And after time, I just had to let him prove to me over time through the relationship that this was a good thing. And let's say he proved me wrong. Honestly, I'd be okay. It would suck, but I would be okay. And I knew that at the end of the day, it was going to hurt and it was going to really be, shitty for a while. But I would be okay. And I would pick myself up and I'd keep it moving. I've done it before. I can do it again. But what I wanted to make sure what didn't happen was that I wasn't going to self sabotage something that was good. And clearly, here you have something that's good and you know that and you're acknowledging it. So try not to let the trust issues overpower the good relationship that you have. If things are going to hit the fan, it's going to hit the fan no matter what. And again, I don't mean that to sound bad. It comes off worse than I mean it to sound. But if it's going to go south, it's going to go south regardless of where you're at. And I think that as a type A and a control freak and someone who has these trust issues, I always like to get ahead of the problems before they happen. This is one of those things that you can't do that with. It's just not. And if you do, it's do we want to live like that? Do we really want to live in a life where we're constantly trying to play detective and get two steps ahead of everything? That's exhausting. It's exhausting. You deserve to have a good love and a good relationship and something that's healthy. And it seems like you do. So just be present in that. Take it one day at a time and know that he has not given you any reason not to feel that, or just, sorry, any reason to feel that. Sorry, let me be very clear. He's not giving you any reason to feel like that. So that's what I have to say. What would Sav do if there's a zombie apocalypse? I would be the first to go, truthfully. I just wouldn't even put up a fight. I would be gone. How do I get over a 4.5 year relationship? I feel like I'm going crazy. What would Sav do? First of all, I am so sorry that you were dealing with that. I'm so sorry you're going through a breakup like that. And I think my longest relationship that I went through a breakup with was about 3 years. So it's not anywhere near 4.5, but I can understand from a long-term relationship perspective. And so I really am sorry that you're going through that and you're feeling all the things that you are. I do have an episode, I forget which one it is, but I know that we did an episode about like how to get through a heartbreak and kind of my step by steps. But I will say, I think what's most important is to give yourself time, which I know is a really annoying answer because you're like, I've given it time. I don't want to give it time. I'm over giving it time. All I do is give it time. And I get that too. But I do think that time really does heal all and it mends certain wounds that we can't just tangibly fix ourselves. And I think that over time, you will start to feel a lot lighter and a lot better about the breakup in and of itself. I think what's really important now is to distract yourself. Honestly, I think that surrounding yourself with good people, people that are close to you, people who love you, and people who are going to carry you through this season is really important because you want people around you who you can just vent to. Like sometimes you just want to vent. You just want to talk, you just want to say your piece and you just want to vent. And I think that that's really important. Having those people where you can just aimlessly talk or have a notes app. I used to always have a notes app where I would just put things in the notes app that I wanted to say to that person. And instead of sending it to the person, I sent it to the notes app essentially. Luckily, that notes app is gone now. So I don't know where it is. I don't know what, I probably deleted it at some point. That's probably what happened to it. But that was honestly helpful. And if I wasn't doing that, if I ever had an urge to text him or to call him, I'd call a friend. I would have my one point of contact that would be like, listen, instead of calling him, I'm going to call you. And you better freaking answer because if you don't answer, I'm calling him. So you have to answer. But I think that that's, again, having people to surround you and really support you through this is important. I think reminding yourself that the feeling that you're feeling now is temporary and you are going to go through life at a certain point. You are going to reach a point where you look back and you say, thank God. You're going to say, thank God that happened. It needed to happen for whatever reason, for personal growth reasons, which will obviously and inevitably happen. But whatever reason it is that lands you in your next phase of life, whenever you get to that next phase, you're going to look back and you're going to say, thank God we broke up. Thank God that that happened. Thank God that that relationship ended because look at where I'm at. And you're going to reach a point where you're going to look back and you're going to say, I can't believe I was ever even, I ever even like was questioning or contemplating or doubting. You're going to say, I'm so glad that I did that because I can't even imagine I can't imagine not being where I'm at now. That's a big one for me is whenever I'm like, in that phase of feeling really down about certain things or questioning, I'm like, but look at my life now and look at where things are at and look at how things played out. And I can't imagine things not being this way. And things needed to go so south because look at where I landed after that. And again, that comes with time. Do whatever you need to do in this moment to get yourself through this phase. Again, surrounding yourself with people, binge watch your favorite shows, go on late night drives, find a creative outlet, I think is always helpful. What for me, that was always music. I would always play piano, write songs, I would do whatever. I know for some people it's art, for some people it's sports, going to the gym. That was always helpful. Just doing whatever you need to do to get through it, get through the time and get through this phase. And I wouldn't shy away from your feelings because I think it's really easy to be like, I don't want to talk about it. I'm not going to deal with it. I'm just going to pretend it's not there. Don't pretend it's not there. And I don't mean to not pretend it's not there when I say distract yourself. What I mean by that is like do things that fill up your day, that take time in the day, and that, you're stepping away from your phone or you are surrounding yourself with people where the time goes by faster, is what I'm trying to allude to. I'm not saying turn off your feelings. Don't turn off your feelings. Accept that those are the feelings that you have and really just lean in on those feelings. And that's why I say it's important to have people around you so you can just vent those feelings out. And then there's going to get a time and a point where you're going to shift. I think it's 7 stages of grief or something like that. And you need to acknowledge that because you are going to go through those stages. When you were with someone for 4.5 years, I know it's very different and, grief is different for everyone in different ways and different, it shows up in different ways, but you are losing someone. You're losing someone in your life. And I think that, you're going to go through those phases. But I just want you to know that I acknowledge the fact that what you're going through is not fucking easy and it sucks and it is not fun. It's not fun at all. But I promise you, you are going to get to a point where you look back and you say, that needed to happen. And you're going to say, I'm so glad that it happened. More than it needed to. You're going to say, I'm so happy that happened. And it sucks that I had to go through that, but look at where it brought me. And so just keep moving forward, focusing on that, focusing on the time in your life where you're going to start to feel that, and it will come. I promise you. And lastly, don't hold yourself to a specific timeline either. I think that that's really important. I know I just keep going on a rant on this one, but holding yourself to a standard or a timeline of like, oh, so-and-so got over their boyfriend or their relationship in X amount of days or weeks or months or whatever. Like they handled it this way, they handled it that way. Don't compare yourself to other people and how they go through a breakup. Your experience is going to be different and your experience does not need to be held to anyone else's standards. You are allowed to navigate through that however you see fit and whatever makes you feel the best. So whether it takes you 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years, if it takes you that long, it takes you that long. It probably won't. It's not going to. I promise. You're not going to feel like this forever. But don't hold your grief to like other people's standards. Don't hold your experience to other people's standards because that's just so different. You're going to feel it differently. You're going to experience it differently. How do you stay connected to your man when he is glued to his phone and TikTok videos? Tell him to get off. Tell him to get off his phone. What are you doing? Get off your phone. Say, I'm right here. Get off your phone. That might be harsh, but I don't care. If Hayden was sitting in front of me and he was on his phone or glued to his TikTok or whatever, I would be like, get off your phone. Let's talk. Let's, whatever. And if I get attitude for that, then we have a bigger problem. But I think that just communicating like, hey, can we just chit chat? Like, can we put the phones down? Can we have some face-to-face time, please? Please? Smiley face. And then if they give you attitude, then that's a bigger problem. But I would just say, hey, can we talk? Can we communicate? Can you please get off your freaking phone? That's what I would say. What fall things are you doing to get in the fall spirit? P.S. I am totally ready for Christmas. You and me both, sister. Things that I'm doing to get in the fall spirit. You should see my front door right now. I have pumpkins, I have mums, I have a Halloween labeled doormat. So the outside is looking fall. The inside, not as much, I'm not gonna lie. We don't have that much fall decor out, but I do have some fall scented candles going. The candle that's burning back here, if you're watching me on YouTube, you probably can't see it, but it's a fall scented candle from Anthropologie. I think it's called Harvest Homebrew, something like that. I have a pumpkin spice latte every morning. That's what I do. I make it from home, and I got the Starbucks Keurig pods, and I just use those every morning, and I make myself a little PSL, and it's so cute. Other than that, I pretty much just dress like it's fall all the time. And I was leading up to the weather changing to manifest it in my mind. And when I did that, I started to feel like it was more fall. Also, pumpkin patches, all of the things, all of the fall things. And I also agree with you. I'm ready for Christmas. I'm not ready for Christmas because you know what? Being ready for Christmas means that it's going to be over. And I don't want it to be over. My favorite holiday, Christmas Eve. It's not Christmas, it's Christmas Eve. I think Christmas Eve is so much better than Christmas because I feel like once you go through Christmas, it's like, okay, it's over. But Christmas Eve, it's like the excitement's there. It's festive. It's colorful. It's wintry. It's so fun. And then you go through Christmas, and Christmas is great too. But by like the afternoon, it's like, okay, that was good. That was fun. That's why I like Christmas Eve better. My boyfriend lies to me about little things, and I've developed trust issues with him and started really resenting his friends. What would Sav do? She said that there is a lot of context missing there, but I do think that just from what I do know, obviously it makes sense that you are starting to resent him because I think that when people start telling little white lies, that adds up. And I am someone who it's like I get it, like white lies are white lies and then there's bigger lies, but a lie is a lie is a lie is a lie. Like if you're going to lie, you're going to lie. And I think that that is just something that I've realized over the years throughout my relationships. It's like I don't care. A lie is a lie. And I think it makes sense when over time, those little lies, it adds up and you become resentful over it. And I think it's important to communicate that. And I think oftentimes we get labeled as being, we're overreacting, we're being dramatic. It's not that big of a deal and it's whatever. No, it's a lie. It's a lie. And if you did the same thing to him, he would probably not be too happy about it. So if I were you and this was really bothering me, I would have a conversation with him and I'd be like, listen, either the next time you catch him in a little white lie or, the next time his friends get brought up into conversation because you said that you're starting to resent them, I would be like, listen, I am really trying not to let this affect me, but the fact that we've had some miscommunication and I feel like you haven't been 100% honest with me about certain things, little white lies here and there, those do add up. And I'm really struggling with just maintaining that trust with you because I feel like some of that trust has been altered a little bit because of the way that you have decided to handle certain situations. And I would say I don't want to resent, your friends. I want to like your friends, but because of what has happened, it's made that really difficult for me. And this is just how it is. And I think that it's important to vocalize that because you did nothing wrong. Your feelings are a result of his actions. And that's why it's important to vocalize that because it's like not anything that you did. It's simply, from what I can understand, the white lies that he has said that have led you to this point. So I would just be very honest about that. I would say, I'm not trying to make this a big deal. I'm not trying to be dramatic, but because of what has happened and what has transpired, that is what has led me here. And so I just want to be open and communicate that with you because I'm not feeling super confident right now. And I would just see what he says. I would see what he says. I think that it's important for you to acknowledge that you know that he's been having these white lies and that it's important for you to vocalize that those white lies, those little white lies that don't matter, no, it's not a big deal, they have consequences. They have consequences. And when you do it multiple times, it adds up. It does. And so, no, I think right now, you're saying that you resent his friends. My fear is that if you don't talk to him about it and stop it now, you resenting his friends is going to turn into you resenting him. So I think what's important is you get ahead of that if that's what you want. I also think it's important for you to ask yourself, and again, this is a non-judgmental question, doesn't matter either way, whatever you want to do, but do you want to be with someone who's white lying to you all the time and telling you non-truths? Little non-truth here, little white lie there. Is that the type of person that you want to be with? And I would say that. I don't want to be with someone who's, saying things that aren't true to me, white lies, because they think it's going to, protect my feelings or I'm not going to get mad or it's not a big deal. I don't want that because you're not taking into consideration my feelings when you do that, regardless of the manipulation and gaslighting that they do because they say that, oh, it is for your feelings because I wanted to protect them. No, it's not. It's for your ego. and it's for your own pride. And so you don't get, yelled at the end of the day. Not yelled at, but you don't get caught. That's what it's for. So I would ask yourself that question. What would Sav do? Basically, me and this dude were friends, and then it turned into a situationship. But every time a relationship got brought up, he said he doesn't want a girlfriend. Fast forward to now, haven't seen him in months when we used to hang out every week, but we still text every day, good mornings, and those types of things. But I recently found out he has talked to multiple girls, but still has never come out about it. Do I go back to being friends? Do I confront him about said girls, or do I cut him off completely? Personally, I would cut him off completely. What's the point of keeping him? It doesn't sound that great. It sounds like it turns into a friends with benefits, which then transformed into a situationship. And I think that at this point, if you are wanting to be more, then this is not the person to be with. I think that if you want a relationship in general or with him, you need to cut it off, because I think that you need to well, okay, here's my thoughts. I think that it's important to recognize that he clearly does not want a relationship. Not, I think he's said it, but also just through his actions. I don't think that there's any good in confronting him about these girls. I don't think it's going to do anything. I don't think it really, matters at the end of the day, because it's not like you guys are exclusive, but I understand wanting to completely, because it's like, no, fuck you. Like, you said you don't want a girlfriend. We've been talking, we've been hanging out. Like, why is it, you don't get to just like not get called out for that. I understand the desire and wanting to, but I think at the end of the day, and this is what I've learned over time, like, you don't need to have that last conversation. You don't necessarily need that closure from a conversation with someone else or with a second party or with the other person, because I think 9 times out of 10, you will never get anything you're looking for in that conversation. And in turn, it will only make you more mad. I think a lot of times when I've confronted people in the past, like relationship wise, I was doing so hoping that they would be like trying to fight for me or trying to fight for the relationship. They never did. They never did. And I think that just based off of everything that you're saying, I think that he clearly is not someone who's capable of having a monogamous relationship right now, because he doesn't want it. And I think if you do, then you need to remove the friendship and the relationship or the situationship, whatever it is. I think that keeping him around does no good for you, no good for your mental, no good for anything really. I don't see a pro in keeping him around. I really don't. And so I think for your sake, I would remove him from your life. And even though that might be hard, I think it's what's best. And I think that if down the line he's like, you know what, I really screwed up. Really screwed up. I do want to be in a relationship and I want it to be with you. Great. Different conversation. But right now, I don't think that there's any good in confronting him about these other girls. And I don't think that, you know, trying to have any sort of closure conversation is really worth it. I would just wipe my hands of it and keep it moving, because you want someone who's going to fight for you. And clearly this guy will not. And that's not the fault of you. It's at the fault of him completely. Absolutely. And you can go find someone who will give you that tenfold. That's my opinion. Hi, Sav. I've been with my boyfriend for a long time and I love him. I have been trying to heal my childhood trauma for a while now. A few days ago, my mom told me that she doesn't want to leave her verbally abusive marriage due to not being able to afford to leave. In the future with my boyfriend, I have wanted a small wedding or no wedding at all, and I'm not so sure about kids due to the insecurities and due to my childhood trauma. Hearing this news about my mom makes me question about getting married and really, really not wanting to have a wedding at all. What would Sav do? Okay, I have thoughts, obviously. First of all, I think that it's great that you are trying to heal through the childhood trauma that you experienced. I think that the fact that you are taking the steps to work through that is really admirable. What I will say is, do not let the fear of someone else's relationship or someone else's marriage and what that looks like stop you from doing what you want. If you want to have a wedding, truthfully, you yourself want a wedding because that's what you want and want to experience, but you're afraid because you don't want to end up like in a situation like your mom is in, have the wedding. Because the fact that you have already recognized, I don't want that, I don't want my relationship to be like that, you have already removed yourself from ever having that be a possibility, because you already know that you want better for yourself. You're not going to allow yourself to fall into a situation like that. And if you do, which I don't think you will be able to get out of it, because you'll have the strength to get out of it because you want better for yourself. If you don't want a wedding because you simply don't want a wedding, that's fine. Don't have a wedding. If you don't want kids because you don't want kids, again, it's all your decision, but let it be your decision, and don't let it be for the fear of turning into a relationship that you have watched unfold. I will say I have struggled with this a little bit. I feel like I can relate slightly just in the way of watching a relationship and not wanting that for yourself and having fear that you can turn into that. But I think that, again, you deserve to have a healthy love, and you deserve to have a happy love and a happy relationship. And the fact that you're already recognizing that that's what you want for yourself and you want better for yourself, you're going to get that. And I think that that is, again, something that you should be proud of yourself for, and not run from the fear of that, like running from the fear that you could be like your mom or in a relationship like your mom is in. I think if you want to have a wedding, have a freaking wedding and have the best time of your life. I think that that's so important if that's what you want. And if I think that down the line, if you don't have a wedding and you did really want one, but you were afraid because you didn't want to turn into or have a relationship like your mom does, I think down the line you'll regret it. I think down the line you'll wish that you would have had that, and that you wish you wouldn't have let the fear stop you. But again, if it's not the fear that's stopping you and you just don't want a wedding, then that's totally fine. Don't have a wedding. But it sounds like it's the fear that's stopping you. You are not going to be your mom. You're not. You're going to be in a different relationship. You're going to be in a different scenario. You're going to be in a different marriage than your mom is in. And I think that you're already starting off on the right foot by providing yourself with the tools and the knowledge so you don't end up like that. And I think that you need to really trust yourself in that. I think oftentimes we think that we're going to be the same, a product of our circumstances in that regard. And because that happened to our parents, that's going to happen to us. That's not true. You can break the cycle. You 1,000% can break the cycle. And there is no reason that you shouldn't have a happy and healthy relationship in marriage. And it does not mean that you're going to fall into the same habits and cycles that your parents or your mom has fallen into. So trust yourself in that. Trust yourself to know that you're making the best decision for yourself. Trust yourself to know that you're choosing the right partner for yourself. And trust yourself enough to make a decision on whether or not you want a wedding based off of your own feelings, not off of your fear. That's what I would say. I think that you're going to make the right decision no matter what. And I just encourage you not to fall into that fear. So that's my opinion. But with that being said, you guys, we're going to cut it off right here. I've been yapping your head off now for a long, long time. But again, that is all for me today. Thank you guys so much for tuning into another episode of My Thoughts Exactly. Again, make sure you go ahead and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. We post weekly on the podcast every single Friday. You're not going to want to miss it. I'll be back next week with a brand new one for you guys, and I will see you there. Bye, guys.